self-awareness is an interesting thing, right? It's an underrated skill. Not all of us have it. I have it a little bit because I know my name is Stephen Means. He has it a little bit because he knows his name is Andrew Gillis. This is a video version of Buckeye Talk. We talked with Jeremiah Smith, the #1 player in the country, 5-star recruit out of Florida, who has gotten ridiculous amounts of hype. Ridiculous amounts of hype. And then he sits down at the table today, Andrew, and it's a whole different person than I think the idea of what Jeremiah Smith is going to be. Other guys are getting asked about Jeremiah. Guys have consistently been getting asked about Jeremiah. But we talk with the cornerbacks and we talk with the wide receivers. What did some of these cornerbacks have to say about what it's been like going up against Jeremiah Smith over the last 9 months?
Well, I think it's really interesting that everybody kind of has a similar answer. Jack Sawyer said this at Big Ten Media Day where he knew pretty immediately. He was like, yeah, I was like, wow, this kid's really good. And it was pretty right away. Calvin Simpson-Hunt. Jermaine Matthews, he said he ain't seen anything like him. That's crazy to hear from a freshman wide receiver. Denzel Burke called him a dog. We asked Davis Adingbonosin a lot about the battles that he had, and he talked about, getting better, going up against each other, and just like an iron sharpening iron type of thing. When you hear these corners talk about it, it's a very unique thing because Jordan Hancock said he knew from the first practice that this kid was different. He knew right away. He said he caught 2 fade routes, and I kind of had an idea. And it was one of those, like, you got to give it to him type of answers, right? He kind of shrugged and was like, yeah, you kind of knew. Like, when you talk about Jeremiah Smith, this is a player that if he was a junior or a senior, we'd be talking about him going, wow, this guy's a really good football player. Wow, this is a really impressive football player. We talked about this yesterday, Stephen, a little bit, where look, he's great, and this program has had great receivers. Haven't really had a freshman come in and do this. This is unique. This is new. This is what makes this thing new. And the fact that he's 18 years old and he is impressing these corners and making these corners like have to just absolutely go full bore against him because they're not trying to get embarrassed and they're not trying to get put on social media because Jeremiah Smith's making a great one-handed catch in the back corner of the end zone. That's impressive. That's noteworthy. So the corners respect it, and I think that they kind of like it because the cornerbacks are part of a great room too. Like, this is a significant battle that's going on in Ohio State's training camp right now, where you have the corners, you have the receivers, you got 2 groups that's maybe like one of the best corners room in the country, maybe the best receiver room in the country. Like, you've got elite versus elite going up against each other, and there's a lot of respect there, and it's just you could tell immediately that when they talk about Jeremiah Smith, it's a little bit different.
And he knows.
Yeah.
That's the biggest takeaway is he knows what everybody's saying about him. Yeah. He knows about the expectations that come with it. He's not leaning into it or shying away from it. He's just kind of living. And it's the thing I took away from the day, and he kind of agreed with me the way I was asking some of the questions. There's 2 Jeremiah Smiths. There's a Jeremiah Smith that we've been talking about on this pod, on these texts, and the world's been talking about when you're in between these lines. And then there's Jeremiah Smith in real life. Jeremiah Smith on the field likes to talk trash. Jeremiah Smith on the field likes to get chippy with you. Jeremiah Smith on the field is the guy we think might have the best freshman season at wide receiver we've seen in a long time at Ohio State. But Jeremiah Smith off the field, a little more quiet, a little more reserved, and almost this healthy balance of these 2 extremes of who he is. He said he's known since his sophomore year, when that's when it started to get crazy for him, and then it really got crazy during his senior year. He also said there was no chance he was flipping on signing day, which also lends into, I wrote this on signing day, this guy knows how to, work up some feelings in people. He probably was never going to flip. But it makes for an interesting story. It makes for an interesting situation when you do bring a bag to your signing day, and it is a thing, and Ryan Day's faking the feint, which he noticed, and he thought it was funny as well. It's interesting watching Jeremiah Smith live in this bubble, know he's in this bubble, and how he's handling it. And I think today was his first introduction to the Ohio State media. He mentioned that there were Ohio State fans showing up to his games down in Florida. That's how big of a deal he was. But today was his formal introduction to the Ohio State media and the Ohio State fan base. And I thought he handled it pretty well. And on August 31st, he's going to introduce himself to the rest of college football, and we'll see where it goes from there. Get the text, 614-350-3315. We're going to continue to text about this, and go listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. We're definitely going to continue to talk about Jeremiah Smith, the wide receivers, and more on Buckeye Talk. Talk to you guys later.